If you want to open a business, you have to love business.
Right. Give us the 6 core values.
Be your brightest, pick a positive attitude. Care most about your future self. Do the work. Choose adventure and hard to kill.
Hello and welcome back to the Better Human podcast, a podcast about making better humans and demystifying the world of relationships, communication, entrepreneurship for your better life. Today we're joined by Kristen Gale, the founder of 10 Spot, Canada's largest and fastest growing beauty bar company. If you don't know this, you've probably been living under a rock. Kristen opened up the doors to Toronto's first niche beauty bar, the 10 Spot in Queen Street, back in the day, 2012. Under her leadership, 10 Spot has expanded to 40 plus locations and is emerging as one of the largest beauty bar chains in North America. You're killing it. Besides that, you've got a ton of recognitions. You were top 40 under 40. Maybe you still are. Canada's top female entrepreneur 3 years in a row. I've gone after that, not the female one, but the male one. I didn't get it. Profits 500 fastest growing companies 3 years in a row, and winner of the Bronze Franchise Award of Excellence 3 years in a row. There's this magic number around threes right now.
Yeah, right.
So let's start the conversation by jumping right into what we call the impact session. Kristen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm fantastic. It's fantastic to have you, and I'm thrilled that we get to have this conversation because you are killing it as a leader, as an entrepreneur. You represent sort of everything around success, not just in business, in your personal life, and we get to share your story today. We get to hear your insights. We get to learn from your experiences and all that cool stuff.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so let's start with an easy one, right? So we want to get to know you a little bit now, and this is an opportunity to give us a little bit of your background and sort of how things started. And, you know, I love talking about failures. I love talking about mistakes. You know, as an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, you know, that you haven't gotten to where you've been without fucking it up a few times.
I love hate failing.
Right, so let's start with that, man. You know, what have been some of your biggest failures over your career?
I fail almost every single day.
Okay.
I would have to say. So I think for me, I love failing because I think that the only way to truly grow is to actually figure out where you have failed and realize you don't want to be there, and then you move up from there. So I tried to think of potentially what you might ask me, and in terms of the failures, I think there were a lot of. I've had a few instances in my career where I failed to feel like I was enough. And I almost got myself into a few different partnership situations where they would not have worked out. I know that, you know, I got that like hindsight, but then I got that uneasy, like panicky feeling right before we were sort of about to go through it. And I pulled the plug on both of them. And I'm so grateful that I eventually listened to myself and knew that, you know, yes, this part might be shitty and hard right now, but I just have to put my big boy pants on and like actually do the work, and that I don't need somebody else to save me from it. And that those ended up being. Yeah.
Where was that in the stage of your business? Was that like early days?
Yeah. So there was two. One, I was going to bring on a business partner, opening up my second location. And then another one, we were going to partner with another brand. It was probably, we had about 6 locations by then. And do sort of like a co-branded partnership thing, and just decided like it wasn't the right fit for the brands. And so I ended up nixing that one as well. So I think we could have potentially been maybe further along, but in some areas, but sort of would have set us back. Yeah.
But maybe not. You know, look, I appreciate what you just said. I'm an entrepreneur. I know exactly what it's like. I've gotten into a merger and partnership for all the wrong reasons, and it didn't work out. And thank God it didn't work out. But at the time, it was very difficult. But for me, I knew part of my challenge was what we call the imposter syndrome, which is, you know, you're a young leader, you're building up this business. How much of that sort of maybe, you know, impacted or contributed to you making some of
those almost failures?
Yeah, almost failures, almost right?
A lot. I think I felt like just overwhelmed. And you know what it actually is? It's there's this rule that like if you know you should do something and you don't do it, the universe is just going to keep like teaching you that lesson over and over again. Right. And I think I knew in those moments that I was the only one that could do this type of work, whatever it might be. Yeah. And then I tried to shirk it off, and I shirked it off so greatly that I almost brought on somebody, you know, brought on the wrong people in order to help me with it. And so thank God I finally, you know, ended up just
look, the universe will give you forks in the road. I mean, in fact, we're going to talk about some forks in the road a little later. So let me jump on to the next. I mean, you know, obviously we learn from our failures, and, you know, all entrepreneurs I speak to, it's one common thing. One, we're a little nuts. Two, you know, we've messed up a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes, but, you know, it's sort of sent us on a particular track.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that maybe you know today that you wish you knew early in your career that would have helped? What were some of those leadership lessons, business decisions, things that you might have said, I wish I knew more about this earlier on in my career?
Oh, definitely financial acumen. I think that I knew enough to know that I didn't know anything. And so the first two things that I did was I wrote my business plan and I incorporated I incorporated my company, and then I hired a bookkeeper because I knew I've already just spent some money incorporating the company and I don't know what I'm supposed to, you know, how I'm supposed to deal with this. And so I hired somebody. But I think in doing that, I passed the buck, and I just always had really great financial people around me. And so I just never really took that on as something that I had accountability for. So that is definitely one of those things that I wish I had, you know, learned early on, because I think it's hindered me in order to be able to make those like truly strategic decisions based off of financial returns, which we could argue maybe yes and no, though. Yeah, because, you know, I think that there is a lot to be said about those gut feelings. And when you know something, you know something, because sometimes things don't necessarily make financial sense in the moment. I always use this example of, we have these, from the very early on, we had TVs in our waxing rooms. So instead of focusing on the pain of a Brazilian, you could watch like reruns of Saved by the Bell. And I've
been in this waxing room, by the way, and I've seen,
it's delightful.
In fact, I was watching Friends.
There you go. Yes, it takes your mind off of it. Right. It's one of those things. It actually, the idea came from, I grew up in Winnipeg, and my Winnipeg dentist office had TVs on the ceilings.
Yeah.
So as you were getting your teeth filled,
super cool.
You could watch a show. So I put those in, and I've said to the team at different points, I'm like, listen, if I were to introduce that idea now, and if I said, hey guys, I've got a great idea. We're going to put in our 40 some bars, we're going to put TVs in all of the waxing rooms. So we're going to make our franchise partners pay for all of the TVs, the brackets, the install, and putting these up. We'd never do it. It would never fly. Because it would just be, well, what's the value? Like, what are we going to, you know,
sometimes
what's the return on
the
this?
financial equation doesn't actually answer what we're trying to achieve, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I hear your point about financial acumen. That was a hard lesson for me to learn. You know, mine was similar, but you know, I did get a bookkeeper and accountant, and then I didn't know what I was talking about with them, and I just avoided them.
Yes.
And then one day CRA called me, and they're like, "Hi, you owe HST for the year." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Anyway, I went to the bookkeeper, and they're like, "Yeah, no, we haven't paid it all year." Anyway, that was my lesson in learning finances, which is don't run away from it, and you better learn how to read a P&L, and you better learn how to communicate with the bookkeeper and the accountants and know numbers. You don't have to be a CFO, but you have to know enough to have a conversation with the CFO.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
But you do. And on that note, actually, let's swing there. You surround yourself with really talented people. You've got a talented executive group.
I have a talent for having talented people around.
Yeah, is that
I know when I don't know what I don't know.
Is that one of your gifts? I mean, is that one of your sort of, you know, what I don't even know what the name is, but specialties, which is you could see people and just know.
You know what? I know what I'm not good at, and I know where I have gaps, and so I do tend to fill those holes with other humans. But it is tricky. It has taken a really long time. I feel it's so funny because despite it being COVID and despite it being the worst period ever in the 10 Spot's 15-year existence, I actually feel the most optimistic and the most secure in it because I have this incredible team around me.
Right.
And that's taken a really long time because there's so many different components to it. One is actually finding great people, finding people that are dedicated and feel accountable for the work that they do instead of just like, oh, well, she told me to do this. I thought I did it right. And, you know, I guess it wasn't correct. But then also training them properly or at least having the type of people that will ask those questions to get real clarity. And so it has been tricky, but it is one of the most rewarding.
So what are some of the things you look for when hired, regardless of the position? Doesn't matter whether you're hiring someone frontline or you want to sort of introduce a new franchisee or, you know, you want to bring someone into your corporate group.
Yeah.
What would be some of the key competencies, skills, characteristics, personality traits that you would look for?
So I find it varies based on what role I want to fill. So if I'm looking for, and I base that off of like, what is the team missing and what do we need that person to fill? So right now we're looking for a new business coach for our franchise partners. So for that role, I don't necessarily need them to be the same type of person as my marketing person is. Like I don't need them to be on trend and bubbly and effervescent and full of great ideas and excited to do a brainstorm as I would maybe want a marketing person. I want this person to be very serious, very like loves numbers, is super well organized. So I kind of go based off of what skill set I need them to have and what their strengths need to be, and then try to figure that out during the interview process.
Very cool. All right, I got a couple more questions before we go to the next section. Yeah. I know you're a big reader. You love thought leadership. You're all into the world. You know, give us the list of authors, speakers, audiobooks. I mean, what's on the list right now? What are you listening to?
I really am obsessed with the audiobooks now because I find you can just squeeze them in and burn through books so quickly. So it's like my shower is probably my predominant listening time because I don't commute anymore. I just bring my iPhone in. They're like totally waterproof now. So yes, I'm reading Enlightenment Now, which is sort of a history of humanity and sort of the different phases of enlightenment we've gone through. Yeah. But in terms of business book, I would say
Higher Consciousness.
Yes. So my favorite book for personal development, I think, is still 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah. It's so good. And I feel like it's a book that you need to reread every 2 to 3 years, which I'm due. And then business is Scaling Up. Yeah. So
I got Scaling Up over there, actually.
Yes. Vern Harnish. So I became so obsessed with this book because it is like our business Bible because it reads like a textbook. Yeah. Scaling Up does. Mastering the Rockefeller Habits was his first one. Right. Much easier read. It kind of was out of print, I think, for a bit, and I think they reprinted it. So anyone starting out, I would start with that one because it's more, it reads like more of a novel, not a novel, but like a book. This is a textbook, yeah. But I became so obsessed with it that I did Vern's boot camp in Florida. Yeah. And then a bunch of seminars and courses. And we actually had a coach that did a Scaling Up coach for a while. Cool. So I've deep in the Kool-Aid on that one.
So I've got a good friend in the tech business, started out as a client, but he scaled his business on the Rockefeller Habits. Yeah. Like he lives it as a Bible.
Yes.
And it's the same as Scaling Up. So very cool. Small world. All right. Final question before we sort of jump into the next one. You know, as entrepreneurs, we all face forks in the road. It becomes opportunity for choice and decision. What are some of the major forks or pivotal moments you've had in your career?
Because we started out I started with one beauty bar and then grew it to 4. So I had 4 corporate stores. And then we started franchising. And when you start franchising, I think, or at least I thought, that you're just like, I know how to run beauty bars. Like what's, so what, instead of a manager in there, it's a franchise partner, like same difference.
Same deal,
and it's not. So they actually have a saying that, you're not in the beauty bar business or you're not in whatever, the hair care business, or you're not in the whatever business you currently
the people business.
And you're in the franchising business, and franchising is essentially a relationship business. Yeah. And so when we first started, I didn't know that. I just thought it was the beauty business with a different, person in the role of manager. And so it took a while to even realize that I'd started a completely new business. So whereas in the beauty bars, I had my guests were people coming in for manicures and pedicures. And now I had these guests that were my franchise partners. And actually the thing that I was delivering was this experience, this curated experience of becoming an entrepreneur. Cool. And that's what I actually do. So what ended up happening was that I was so focused for the last however long, I think we started franchising in 2012, just on that franchise business of getting those franchise partners to, have everything so seamless. So like, how do we onboard you into our system? How do we train you, help you find real estate, help you with your build out process, help with all of those different elements of running the business. So staff management and the operations of it, that I lost sight of the bigger brand, and that my role was not just to help facilitate our franchise partners do well at their business, but that they were dependent on me as well to grow and protect the brand. And it kind of felt a little bit like I was, especially those first, couple days and weeks of COVID when I realized like, oh my God, the plane is going down and it's actually been going down for a little while. I haven't really been focused. I've been in the back putting on everybody else's masks instead of, flying the plane. Yeah. And doing stuff that would really grow the brand. So what we ended up doing was we refocused so that I've got strong people managing and operating the bar. So we actually put a president in place for the beauty bar. And then that's allowed me to focus on growth initiatives and different innovations. Very cool. We're launching
scaling
a beauty line. Exactly, right?
3.4, 5.6.0.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. All right, we're going to hear more about sort of what you're doing. We're going to take a quick break before we move into the next section or segment. Section, I think is a better word. Okay, just before we jump into the next segment, we're going to take a quick little audio break and we're going to hear from our sponsor, the betterHUMAN program. The betterHUMAN program is a 10-week program that equips you with the tools to achieve success in every interaction with other humans. Learn assertiveness, effective communication, interpersonal skills, and take control of your life with the betterHUMAN program. Check out the link below for all the description information. All right, welcome back. We're in the next section. We are going to get interesting now. We're going to, learn more about sort of everything we've just discussed and how you actually do it. So let me ask you, let's start with this question. What kind of personality do you think you need to be in order to succeed in your role?
I think that there's maybe different skill sets between being an entrepreneur and being a CEO.
Okay, so let's start with what do you think, skill sets. So let's go there. Okay, so what do you think the skill sets are of an entrepreneur versus a CEO? And then what do you think the personality traits are?
I would have to say that I am like 1,000% an entrepreneur through and through. So every day needs to be different. I'm constantly on to the next thing. Somebody in my YPO group said, because they were the same way, where it's, once you reach the goal, you're kind of no longer interested in the goal because you assumed that you were going to hit that goal anyway. And so you don't really derive the joy out of it because you're on to the next goal by the time you're sort of sailing past that goal. And so I would say that that is very much how I am. And so that can definitely, that's amazing. Like my ambition is one of my sort of key success factors, but I know that my ambition is also one of my failures. And that's when dealing with a team, that can be really difficult because you forget to praise and be excited because you're like, why are we clapping hands for this? Like, obviously we should have hit that, and like, what aren't we, what are we doing towards the next thing that should have been done 3 weeks ago? And
you're halfway up the mountain turning around going, hey, what do you guys doing down there? You're like, you're camping out for the night. Let's
I'm on a different mountain. I'm like, guys, we thought this mountain, we should do this instead. And so I think that can sometimes be at odds with being a CEO, which is, here's our plan. And we're going to stick to this plan until we achieve what we said we were going to do. And so that I find can be a little bit tricky to.
How hard do you work to be a CEO?
Oh, like so hard. Being an entrepreneur just comes so naturally. Like that it's what I am. And being a CEO is something that I have to learn. And I'm constantly trying to learn it. It's like waking up and being like, you should be looking at the financials. I'm like, I don't
care.
I want to be making money, but I only want to make money so I can like invest it into more things versus So
do you think part of that, impulsiveness, that creativity, that, spontaneity, the touch the shiny thing and move on to the next has also contributed to your ability to brand the way you have with the business? Like you've built a strong brand. Like I'm in really all aspects. Obsessed. Like you walk into any location, like just everything from the walls, the colors, the furniture, the TVs on the wall, the Friends episodes that are playing, the music, like everything is thought about.
I really love details in that way. And my background is actually graphic design. So I did philosophy at the University of Western Ontario just because you're supposed to go to university, and all my friends went there. Basically, I got a degree in partying and being nocturnal, sleeping all day and partying all night. And ended up getting a philosophy degree because my dad was like, listen, I'm paying for this. So you are going to graduate this year and you're not doing a fourth year like all of your friends. So pick whatever you have the most classes in and that's what you're going to graduate with. And I actually had 2 philosophy classes under my belt at that time. So then I just like stacked them and that's what I did. I left the University of Western Ontario and I was going to move to New York City because what 20 20-year-old girl
I
doesn't
could totally
want
see you doing that actually.
move
Like
to
20.
New York City and work in PR.
Right?
And I
Go to
wanted
Connecticut on the weekends.
exactly. I was going to be an event planner and PR person. I didn't actually know that PR was writing articles. I thought it was marketing.
Yeah,
So
PR is a difficult job.
It is
like
actually,
it's not just shaking hands and kissing babies. It's a lot of like difficult research, cold calling, sales. Like it's a gritty sort of job.
Yeah, it wasn't the glitzy, glammy, like, planning Justin Timberlake's birthday party like I thought it was going to be. So
I love JT.
Yeah. So I ended up, after my little brief stint in New York, I moved to Montreal, and I realized that I had to put something on my resume that wasn't just like really well organized. And here's all my like rando internships that didn't pay me anything. So I went to school for graphic design because I knew that I was always going to be an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur, and he said to us kids, like, whatever you want to do in life, don't care, find what you love.
Right.
But the rule is you have to make it into a business. So I always knew that I was going to do that. And actually I've always had a very strong interest in business. I'd written a bunch of business plans, like even as a kid, had a bunch of ideas and constantly had ideas for business plans. And I thought, you know what, something that would be beneficial now, so I could get a job, learn how to be an employee, learn, get some life skills before I do this. But that would also be very valuable for when I do start my business, and I can then do my own logos and advertisements and branding and that kind of thing. So it turns out I have an obsession with graphic design. Cool. Like if I die, I will go to heaven and I will be sitting at a cafe with my laptop, headphones on, playing with fonts and colors and
drinking
things like
coffee.
that. Yeah,
right,
drinking
coffee. Making everything colorful. Amazing.
Yes.
So let me ask you this question. What are some common myths about entrepreneurship? And, I'm going to actually make that a little more specific to you, which is female entrepreneurship. And I talk to a lot of, in quotations, males, right? And I get some, but, and I don't want to make this a male-female conversation, but, you as a young female leader and entrepreneur, what are some common myths that, we want to debunk about that?
I do think that there are differences in males and females. And that's not to say that one is better or the other, because I don't think that. I think that we have equal skill sets, but I do know that, being in an all-female company, I think that there are things that happen, even just the way that meetings flow or run or the different things that we focus on, I think in my experience have been different than when I have conversations with my, male counterparts, and just sort of the types of the way that they deal with situations or what they focus on. Or how they think, I have found has been different.
Well, at the risk of saying something I shouldn't in 2021 and floating this line, from an outset watching in, as an entire female team, I see a completely different dynamic and culture between you guys. Like there's a connection, there's a closeness, there's I talk a lot about the importance of building relationships, really being friends with the people that you work with, like layering in and leveling into people's lives, investing. And I see that with your entire team, which is there's this ultimate connection.
Yes.
And it's not just good times, fun times. It's there's really the definition of we're doing amazing work and we've got a huge responsibility to perform, but we're connected and intimate and social. And I mean, even in some of the events before COVID that you guys were putting on, which I was able to be a part of, it was like hanging out with a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, definitely.
And most companies and entrepreneurs, they want to build that culture. They think, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this ultimate sort of culture, and very few do, and you have, which put a feather in your cap.
Yeah, thank you. No, it is really funny because when we get together for our exec team meetings on Tuesday mornings, and it really, you all get on Zoom and you're like, hi guys, so nice. It really does a little bit feel like, for the first couple minutes you are catching up. You're catching up with friends, and it's just really nice to see everybody.
Right. It's important, man. You spend so much time with these people. I mean, we hang out a lot. We're together 10 hours a day sometimes. I spend more time with you than my kids. That's Raul behind the camera right now. He's directing and managing and making sure we don't say anything we shouldn't. All right, so
all be edited out.
All right, I got a couple more questions before we take another break, but and these are some good ones. So let me start with a good one, which is, what are some of your favorite memories when about your business, about 10 Spot, about starting it? What have been some sort of moments for you along the way that you're like, you know what, this is why I'm in it?
Yeah. Oh, again, I have so many good ones. Probably top of mind though is of course those moments like it's 3 a.m. It's me and my laptop. I'm figuring something out. I'm learning something new. Especially in the early days, I had to do everything. So figuring out how to build a website or, integrate, like set up our spa software and integrate the payments and things like that. I found very fulfilling because I really am one of the things that gets me going. If you want to open a business, you have to love business because for me, I wasn't necessarily into beauty. I mean, I wasn't into, I wasn't an esthetician. I'm not like a quote unquote product junkie. I kind of wash my face with Bumble and Bumble because when the suds from the hair like wash down my face, I guess it's Olaplex now, but like, this wasn't my thing that got me going. It wasn't my spark. It really was doing something new for the first time, having to navigate that, having to learn. And so that's what really keeps me excited. I feel like I've never worked a day. Okay, sorry. There's probably like good 10 days where I've had to do really shit stuff that feel like dread and work. Like I don't want to have that tough conversation. I don't want to have to deal. It's usually tough conversations. I just hate them. It's people.
That's your Achilles heel.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Just your success and Achilles heel.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but beyond that, like every day is new and I get to create whatever I
how did you come up with the 10 Spot? I mean, did you, as you said, and I know this, which is you didn't grow up saying one day I'm going to open up a franchise business and it's going to be a beauty bar and it's going to have an orange logo and blah, 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 blah. How the fuck did this all come about?
It's just sort of, I was very naive at the time. So I was 24 years old. So that I credit with a lot of it. And then just sort of, I look at business, and I know that this is wrong because business, I should be looking at, the strategy and the financial numbers, but I tend to look at it as like just one long ass, never ending to-do list. Right. So when I started out, like I said, I was looking for an idea, or I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I was kind of always in the back of my mind looking for an idea. I had a graphic design job that I was working at in Toronto, and then I got fired. And this was now the second time that I had been fired in my very short career. So I had 3 jobs, 2 of them I've been fired from, and one of them actually was an unpaid internship. So you got fired from an unpaid internship. Talk about winning at failing.
I hope you weren't doing graphic design because
I was not. No, I thought that I wanted to do PR, and then this was in New York City. I thought that I wanted to do PR, and then it turns out I didn't know what PR was, and I really wanted to do marketing. And they had too many people and I had a shitty attitude. And so it's such a good story. It is.
Tell us the story and then we're going to take a break. Story.
Okay.
Because like you said, I had a shitty attitude. I was young. I got fired. And this all goes into like fucking up in life. And if these things didn't happen, you probably wouldn't have been put on the track that you're in. And you probably wouldn't be where you are today. But let's start with that story.
It's so true. Actually, it led to like the greatest job ever. So I was at Western and I had sent out 60 different resumes to all of these different PR firms. Now, my main goal was I wanted to work for Lizzie Grubman PR. Okay. So at the time, she was the shit. She was doing Justin's birthday and Britney Spears. They were together at the time. They had like they were doing all of their to-dos and their things. And I actually got an interview to internship there. So this was like my dream come true. This was going to happen. I was going to move to New York. So I had applied in May of that year. And I think it was like April, something like that. By July, Lizzie Grubman had been in an incident in the Hamptons in which she was wasty and drove her truck, backed it up into a line up of people outside of this club in the Hamptons. So her life and career was, I think she went to jail, and she fled the scene, like not good. So I'm like, fuck, I am not going to be working at Lizzie Grubman PR anymore. This doesn't exist. So I ended up going with my second pick. And because there was such a time gap of when I had gotten the role and then actually had moved there, right. It turns out that the company that I got hired for was super small. So they had one marketing person and then their intern, one PR person and then their intern. And again, by the time I had landed there, they had let go of their one PR person and they had hired another PR person and she had her own assistant that she brought with her. So this was a super small boutique firm. I was not needed. I did nothing there except for like organize the stock room, take checks to the bank.
That's how I started my career here at Wits. I was the gopher. I ran around licking envelopes and like, you know, just looking for like, hey, do you need a coffee field? Like,
exactly. What can I do? What can
I
do? Can I organize these pens by color?
Right.
And there was no internet as well. So like there kind of was, but I mean, it was not like it was today. Like Google wasn't there.
Right.
There's Yahoo, and you're like not really Yahooing a bunch. So anyway, one day after like months of this, I go to the one guy, Ramiro, and I say to him, hey, I'm like done organizing the staff room again for like the 90th time. Do you have, I wasn't sassy in me. I was like, hey, Ramiro, do you need me to do anything? He's like, well, we don't have any checks for you to take to the bank today, but I like have some personal checks you could like take to the bank for me. And this was the summer, I don't know if you remember, in New York City, it was so hot out that people were dying. Like there was a full on, I mean, I'm sure they've had hotter days than
I was going to use the word pandemic, but we won't use that anymore because everything's a fucking pandemic nowadays.
And the bank was like 10 New York City blocks away. And I'm like, you know, no, I'm so sick of doing nothing and taking these goddamn checks to the bank every day. No, Ramiro, I don't want to take your goddamn checks for you. So I sat down at my desk and we had MSN Messenger or like ICQ or something. It was one of the really older ones. And the other intern, the marketing intern, her name was Marie. And I ICQ'd Marie and I'm like, fuck this. Ramiro can take his own fucking checks to the bank. I'm so pissed. There's nothing for me to do. This sucks. And I hit send and then I'm like, you know, whatever, go and organize the coffee grounds. And then I get a call and Ramiro asked me to come into his office and he's like, you know.
She ratted you out?
You should be more careful when you're ICQing people that you check the correct name before you hit send.
Oh, no. So it was.
And I'd actually sent my fuck you Ramiro message to Ramiro instead of Marie because, of course, on the ICQ chat, their names are like right beside each other. And so then about like an hour later, I got called into the
and you're out.
HR,
right. And you know what? I think that's a lesson in one, having a shitty attitude. Just in, like, it doesn't matter what work you're going to do the damn work.
Do the work,
right? It's not like you were doing anything different. It's not like you were busy, you know, saving the planet.
Wasn't,
And second thing, you know, just before you hit send,
check
where it's going.
Double check that,
Right, absolutely.
Never put anything sassy in writing.
Right. And you know what? I might even argue that today, if that same thing happened to you with your experience today, you would probably maybe have a conversation about it. Versus
100%. And you know what? It's so again, my I think it was so valuable to have for anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur. I think you do need to be in the working world first because you need to know what it's like to be an employee, to understand their struggles, and to you know, just to learn the ropes of it. So it's funny because I think of, and I've told this story to a bunch of people before, when they find themselves doing something, I'm like, listen, you're young, you will have these. So this is your moment. This is your Ramiro moment where you've messed up and it's a learning lesson for you.
Is it in your deck, by the way? Is it part of your onboarding package?
It's not.
The Ramiro story?
It's not. Maybe it should be.
Are you still connected with Ramiro?
Sure am not. Although I love the woman that started her little business, and I've thought of her often where I'm like, God, I wonder, you know, I know she really liked me and I know she was sad that I messed up so badly and that she had to fire me. And so it would be just fun to meet her now and be
LinkedIn
like,
social. See what
I did okay after all.
You're like, look at me now, right? Thanks for firing me. Yeah. All right, we're about to move to the next section. We're going to take a quick little break first, and we're going to jump into what we call a couple signature questions. Ooh. And this is going to be your opportunity to give us some advice and guidance for life. Okay, just before we jump into the next segment, we're going to take a quick little audio break, and we're going to hear from our sponsor, the betterHUMAN program. The betterHUMAN program is a 10-week program that equips you with the tools to achieve success in every interaction with other humans. Learn assertiveness, effective communication, interpersonal skills, and take control of your life with the betterHUMAN program. Check out the link below for all the description information. All right, we are back with the final section. This is an awesome section. This is what we call the betterHUMAN section. This is the betterHUMAN takeaway section. This is for you to give your opinions, your advice, your guidance, your expertise, and in some cases, just your good old knowledge and as I said earlier, opinion. So, I want to start with the first signature question, which is what we call, what does the word better human mean to you? And how do you think we could all sort of live to that, whether it's leadership, whether it's entrepreneurship, but the word better human, what does it mean? And, you know, how do we get there?
I think it's everybody's responsibility or accountability to constantly become a better human for themselves and for others. So I think that comes in the form of just learning about yourself and learning as much as you can, and then trying to apply it to yourself. So how do you become a better CEO, mother, brother, sister, friend, and how do you give more than you take from people? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, in a very practical sense, it's reading books, it's watching, watching YouTube videos on whatever you can. It's listening to podcasts, it's getting coaches, it's getting mentors. It's having that beginner's mindset that like you don't, because I think when you feel like you're a know-it-all, then you just stop growing. And that is the kiss of death for any job or any role that you have as a person.
Right. Awesome. You know, I said to someone the other day, I said, sometimes leadership is like parenting, where you read the homework the night before in order to teach the kid the next day. You don't have to be the teacher and be a subject matter expert or be sort of, you know, an expert in there. But sometimes it's just by putting in that effort so you could be just a little bit ahead. And in some cases being transparent. I love that. I love what you said, which is, it's always, and I'll paraphrase, it's always about sort of having the mindset that I'm beginning, not ending. Yeah.
And I think another aspect is, so I have family core values. Okay. So there's 6 of them. And one of them is be your brightest. Okay. And the way that I have a 9-year-old son.
Give us the 6 core values. Because I don't think it's just your family. I think you actually live this as well, not just within your family, but actually as a leader and as a business owner. Right. So I have business core values. So we have our business purpose, and then we have our business core values. And then so align those for us. So let's start with the family ones, the values, and then tell me what the business ones are, and let's see if there's an overlap. So I found that the business ones were so powerful in guiding our culture and helping people make decisions, that I decided, like, hey, I have this little human that I'm trying to make. One day he said that he wanted to be Canada's best earth person. Oh, cool. So I'm like, well, that's my job, boy, is to try to make you Canada's best earth person. So essentially, and that is our purpose. So my purpose is to find those life hacks and to have a life hack in my new partner, so that we can to be each other's life hacks, so that we can live our A+ life. Cool. And hopefully that inspires other people, you know, along the way. And what is a life hack? Just so we know what a life hack is. A life hack is just being that person that will point out to you and not be afraid to tell you in a very loving, supportive, but direct way of like, you're messing up in these areas, and here's how you can fix them or do better. And I think that it's really important to find somebody that you partner with that wants the best for you and is going to help you do that and push you to do that. So we sort of developed this, you know, together to kind of give our relationship that purpose. Cool. And then we have our core values. So one of this is choose adventure. So living that life where like we can find everyday adventures, even if it's like going for a walk. You know, we went for a giant family walk the other week, because you can do nothing else really. Mm-hmm. And we called it our midnight walk, even though it was like at 8 p.m. And we found an abandoned railroad thing, and you go and you find an abandoned rail car and you climb on it. And it's like it made at least our night different from other nights, and it was a mini adventure. And that's like from those tiny daily adventures to bigger ones, of course, that you can find. So choose adventure. And it also helps with the kiddies. So if they're being, they're not wanting to do something, and it's, mountain biking, and they're tired and they're whining and they're griping and they don't want to go on, it's like choose adventure, and it sort of riles them up. It gets them excited. I'm going to use that actually with my son. Yes, it's a goodie. Hard to kill. So life can be tough, and it's the difference of, getting back up when life kind of knocks you down, is one of them. I love that. Yeah, be your brightest. So this one I find is really wonderful for my 9-year-old, because to me it's about thinking of yourself as having a dimmer switch,
And it's like, you want to, you can find yourself in life where you can dim yourself down, whether it's you're in a certain relationship where it's just sort of like taking the life out of you and it's not the right fit. Or you are in a social situation where you just feel intimidated or, I guess just like less
reserved
than everybody else, or reserved. And it's like, and insecure is the perfect word. And just sort of knowing that like your job, your responsibility is like be the brightest version of yourself that you can be. And then it has a double meaning because it also means being clever and smart. So, you get more bees with honey, that type of thing. So teaching early on that like, hey, there's ways to get what you want here. Like be your brightest on this.
Very cool. All right. What's number 4?
Number 4 is, care most about your future self.
Oh, fucking love these, man.
Right? It's so good.
About your future self. There's keywords there. Not just care about yourself. Care about your future self. So the decisions and the things you do today are going to impact and affect your future self. And it's about
caring. This one comes from like caring most about what you really want versus what you want right now.
Right.
Which, it's like you want to eat the chocolate cake, but you also want abs. So.
And that's coming from you that says, I love running down the mountain. And then as soon as I get there, I love going left. And then once I've got there, I love going right again. And then big, right?
Exactly.
Very cool. Number 5?
Do the work. Because it's all about doing the work. And doing the work is really like, hey, you want a great relationship with your husband? You know what that takes? Like turning on the romance and, making sure that you if you want family dinners and you want to have that thing, it's like, it's freaking work. Yeah. It's like organizing what you're going to eat, going to the grocery store, making the food, eating it, which is the thing that you want, and creating those connections and bonds and being present during that, because it can be tough to, if you've all had long days and trying to homeschool your children and you don't really want to really be spending more time trying to get them to eat.
Cook.
Exactly. And then it's the cleanup. Like life is work, but when you do the work, that's where the true rewards come from.
Awesome.
Pick a positive attitude.
Amazing.
Because come on.
Because that's choice,
Is there any other choice? Yeah.
And I tell that to a lot of people, particularly people that are miserable. I'm like, you realize like being happy is a choice.
Yeah.
Smiling, if you just go like, try to curl that lip in front of the mirror, you do it enough, before you know it, you're going to start smiling. Yeah. And then people start smiling back. And it's the easiest fucking thing in the world.
Just take off your shit colored glasses.
Right.
Okay. Because it's all perspective.
Shit colored glasses. I heard of rose-colored glasses, but
no, this is the opposite. This is when
glasses.
Everything's awful, and it is hard. It is hard to like when things feel heavy, especially during this time frame. In fact, it's funny because my son at the beginning of the pandemic was really like, I think had just heard, everything that, he overhears like Amazon Alexa telling the stories. He overhears like people being like, oh, it's so hard on the children. And like, this is really difficult. And, he started to internalize that messaging. And so he'd have these tantrums and his temper tantrums, or he'd get upset and he'd be frustrated about something. He's like, it's really hard for me. All of this COVID and businesses and whatever. And I was like, you know what, bud? Gotta tell you, COVID is the best thing that's ever happened to you. Mm-hmm. You are not in school. You play all day. I finish work at 3 now because I'm able to like not waste time driving and like
I'm with you all day. There's a lot of positives, getting ready. Right? Yeah.
And I was like, this from your perspective, like, for me, this sucks. But for you, this is actually amazing. You get so much time with mom and dad. You get to do adventures every day. We're like, we were mountain biking every single day. And I was like, so pick your perspective. Like you have to understand this situation for you. If you just internalize what everybody else is saying, like you really need to see like, this is great for you.
Okay. We end every episode with this question. It is a question around our Better Human takeaway. It's a 1 or 2 line piece of advice. It could be, things from today's learning and today's discussion that we want to share with not just our audience, but with our audience. But in this particular case, thinking of you as a leader, you're running a very large business and franchise. What would be sort of the 1 or 2 line piece of advice that you would want to sort of leave your team with, your franchisees with, your kids with, our audience everyone with, right? What is that?
I don't mean to steal a Nike slogan, but I really do think that there's something. But it has to have this beginning piece on it, which is like, what to do. So just do it. Because I think that everybody actually knows what they want to do, and they just have to you know, the procrastination or the like humming and hawing or the like, I don't know what to do, is just trying to build up the courage to actually do it. You know, if you're in a shitty relationship, you know that you shouldn't be with them, just get out of it. You know, the difficult conversation that you need to have, just do it, which is like so difficult. Like, I know that this is difficult to do, but if you can just, I think that people waste so much time in the part of being confused or feeling like they don't know what to do. And it's like, deep down you do. If this was an emergency, like, and I actually like to think about that a lot of times. So people are like, I'm not sure. It's like, if this was an emergency, if you had to, you know, complete X by like tomorrow, what would you do? Like, what extreme measures would you do? And if that's it, then just do that right now. 'Cause you know.
Yeah, most will get it done. In fact, it actually comes back to your fifth value, which is do the work.
Yeah, do the work, yeah.
That's it. Very cool. And I know we were going to do a crossover between sort of your business values and stuff and your personal, but man, I love your personal, and I think people can apply them not just to personal, but business as well.
Yeah.
Kristen, this is amazing. By definition, you are a leader. You are a better human. You're an entrepreneur.
I'm trying. I still got to get there.
Right, but that's the trick to all of this
At the end of it, I want to graduate as like, you are a great human. Way to go on your life. A+. Well,
the good news is now that you got that you did the podcast, you get a hat, which makes it official.
Dope.
So we're good. But it's been a real pleasure having this conversation, learning more about you, about the way you think, about how you make decisions, your values, you know, the experience that you've had. And I think today's episode is not going to be just a great for people to listen to, but it's filled with advice. And if, you know, you're looking to be an entrepreneur, if you're looking to build up as a leader, you know, take a page out of Kristen's book, because and maybe one day you will have a book. But take a page out of your book, because I think we can all learn a little bit and practice what you do.
You're too kind. The pleasure was all mine. Thank you.
It was awesome. All right. If you like today's episode, don't forget to click that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to comment. And we will see you next time. Thanks so much for coming and checking out the video. If you like that video, you're going to love the next one. So I'd highly suggest that you click this video over here. And don't forget to subscribe and share.